Next speaker is Jos Polvliet. Jos is data science expert at the SAS Institute in Belgium, but he has worked at SAS Canada for 1 year. His former manager used to call it an Erasmus for professionals. And while he was in Canada, Jos won a data science competition of $10,000. Of course, he donated the money to charity. Jos, can you please explain the solution that you have built?
Thank you, Nela. Can someone with my number please text me, because I have nobody to talk to and I just want to hurt myself so badly and I'm scared. My own father told me I deserved being killed. I hate him. There's not one day I don't think of killing myself. These are the kinds of things that teenagers actually put on social media. I'm not going to talk about the privacy issues there. It's a very sensitive topic, but others have already talked about it. But this data does contain very valuable information. Right now, as far as I know, this data is not used in any way to drive policy or to actually help people. It's not being used in any way, while suicide is the second leading cause of death in teenagers. It's the second leading cause of death in teenagers, making it responsible for 1 out of 4 of every death. Some results of what we did, and all the statistics and all the things I quote are indeed, as Neil said, from Canadian data, because I lived and worked there. We could do exactly the same in Belgium, and believe me, I'd love to. We had about 1.1 million tweets that we analyzed, made by Canadian teenagers during a specific time frame. 10% of those were about feelings. So that's about, I love this, I hate this was really awesome, this makes me sad. About 1% was about bullying. It was about bullying, physical aggression, verbal aggression, getting into fights, having discussions. And about 0.035% of all tweets were directly about suicide or mental health issues. That's 382 tweets that directly stated, I want to kill myself. I want to cut myself. I want to hurt myself. And nothing's being done about it. One of the more surprising things that we found is that there's a 39% correlation between authors talking about suicide and bullying. So an author who is talking about bullying is very likely to also talk about suicide. So why did we do this? Well, the Canadian government asked us to. It was, as Neil said, a data science competition called the Data Impact Challenge, in which the question was, what proportion of Canadian youth post about their mental health and describe experiencing bullying or suicidal thoughts in the past 12 months on social media? Our submission won $10,000, which we, of course, donated to mental health charities as we acted as a company. I love standing here before 500 fellow data nerds and geeks, because then I get to explain the process and you'll actually be interested in it. At least I hope so. First thing that we need to do with every unstructured text analysis is we need to gather data. In this case, we downloaded the data using the Twitter API, downloading data from tweets that were made in Canada during a specific time frame. Canada is a bilingual country, just as Belgium is. That means we have to do language detection before, to filter out English, because taxonomies are language specific. So we filtered out English in this case. But then we had a problem. Twitter doesn't have an age field in its profiles. It just doesn't exist. So we had to come up with a way to filter out which authors were teenagers. Turns out that that's actually not that hard. Teenagers have a very specific lingo. They use a lot of emojis. They talk about specific subjects. They talk about school. They talk about their parents. They talk about Justin Bieber. Then we filtered out all the tweets that were very likely to be made by teenagers. And so now we have a list of tweets made by Canadian, presumably teenagers, during a specific time frame made in English. And now we can start assigning topics to those tweets. So we looked for topics like aggression, alcohol use, bullying, family. Is this person talking about feelings? Is this person talking about relationships? Is this person talking about mental health issues? And then afterwards, well, that's when the real fun starts. That's when we can start analyzing this. And we can analyze this on different levels. We can analyze the topics, which topics are related to each other. We can analyze the authors. Can we cluster those authors according to their behavior? We can analyze the tweets themselves. Do certain tweets, are they correlated with certain other topics? And so on. Just as a quick note, what we use here to download is the Python crawler for the Twitter API, and then we use SAS text analytics technology for all the other steps. And SAS visual analytics for analyzing it. So now we have a huge data set comprising of 1.1 million tweets, which we have tagged by topic. We know who the authors are. What are we going to do with it? How can this help us prevent suicide and mental health issues? One thing we could do is we can come up with a predictive model that assigns a risk score to each Twitter profile. We can come up with a number that tells you how likely somebody is to suffer from depression or suicidal thoughts. But let's take a step back there. We can do that, but do we really want to? As Philippe has already said during his talk, that's a really ethical challenge. What are we going to do with that information? Are we going to pick up the phone and call some teenage girl's mother and tell her, look, some guy from Ghent, he decides that he built a statistical model and you have a 36% probability that your daughter suffers from depression? You can't use data like that. It's just way too sensitive. Where I think the real value comes here is if we start analyzing the data on a larger and a global scale. So we can analyze that data and we can look for certain trends and patterns. For example, is it a specific province that has a problem with mental health issues? Is it a specific region within that province? Is it even maybe specific schools? We can look at it from a geographical perspective. But we could also look at it, for example, from a time perspective. Is it certain periods in the year? Is it during exam time? Is it more during Christmas time when people spend more time with their family? Is it more during holidays because teenagers are more isolated? One thing that we found surprising here was that there was a huge spike in August 2011, which is exactly when Robin Williams decided to take his own life. I remember reading in the newspaper 3 weeks ago that after the unfortunate death of Steve Steyvaart, there were 25% more suicides. Copycats. If we know these trends and we know this behavior, why don't we act on them proactively? Why don't we change the way we spend that limited budget to make it more efficient, to target the campaigns and the prevention campaigns and the prevention workers to where they're most needed? We don't have to spend more money, we just have to spend it in a smarter way. That's what you can do if you look at new information sources. Because these teenagers, they don't tell the same things to their parents. And they don't tell the same things to their teachers. But they do put it on social media. So let's use that data. Let's use their lack of privacy to help them in this case. And we can have an ethical discussion about that later. So where are we here with this project? Well, I have a lot of ideas. Most of them suck. This one is already past the definition phase. We define which data do we need, what do we want to do, how can we do it, is there some potential value in there? But it's not working in production yet. It's something we're still working on, even in Canada, and on the Belgium level, we're nowhere. If I can leave you with one thing, it's please use your textual data as well, your unstructured data. It contains so much valuable information. And you can use it for good, but you can also use it for profit. If you're a company, you have unstructured data as well. You want to know, what are my customers saying about certain products? Are there issues? What's the sentiment? You can analyze call center logs. You can build chatbots. You can look at HR data, look at contracts, look at social media data. There are a lot of options, and the software is ready. The software has been ready for 10 to 15 years. The techniques are there. The people who know how to analyze it are there. And if they're not, come see me. Lastly, and I'm absolutely serious about this, I'd love to redo this analysis in Belgium. I think there's really an opportunity here. So if anybody knows Maggie the Block, or everybody knows somebody who's close to Maggie the Block, please come see me after the talk, and then we can have a discussion to see if we can repeat this in Belgium and help save a couple of lives. Thank you.